You want to see how we do it in the pros?
Changing your swing is about repetition without repetition. You don't just hit 500 balls with this thing and change your swing. You also don't just hit 500 balls without a thought.
Welcome to Earned Not Given.
Well, can't say I told you so, but I'm going to say I told you so and I told everybody else so. Scottie Scheffler is en fuego.
Yeah, the guy's unreal, right? I mean, I think we've talked about it going into Bay Hill and even before the Players last week. We are talking about how if he gets a putter going or figures it out, he's probably not going to lose. And then even off camera, we were talking with your group about how, honestly, if you pick anybody other than Scottie, like it just doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. And to see him win the way he did at the Players was, I mean, obviously validated everything that you said, but it really validates everything that him and his camp have been doing and working on. Like, I know that I had to ask you because I didn't really watch as much when I was younger, when Tiger was really dominant. So I asked you on Sunday night, I was like, is this what it was like? I understand why it's not, but I kind of want you to go in on that because for a whole generation of people that watch golf now, this is what we think of, like, when we think of Tiger dominance, is what Scottie has been doing and looks like he's about to level up again.
Yeah, I mean, I think first off, it's just incredible what he's done. The fact that there was a moment on Saturday where he was 8 back, then he gets it to 5 back, and we all go to sleep on Saturday night saying, okay, 5 back, whatever. And then all of a sudden, Sunday afternoon, it's amazing. And if you were a golf fan and you didn't watch the Players, then you don't appreciate golf. We've been saying since the start of this podcast that golf needs the big-time players to step up in big-time events. And this is exactly what golf needed. Yes, I think you can never compare someone else to Tiger Woods. Tiger Woods is the reason why I sit here today because Tiger made golf cool. Tiger transcended not your typical golf demographic. He made golf cool to those players, people that were doing other sports. Scottie Scheffler is making golf cooler for golfers. That would be the only differentiator. But for me, right now, Scottie Scheffler is the best player on the planet. It's not even close. And the reason it's not even close is he played this weekend multiple times. We saw the K-tape popping out of the collar. We saw the physios having to adjust him. We saw the interview on Saturday where he said, guys, I'm just trying to slap this thing around. I can't even move. I'm just hitting it with my hands. I'm not trying to hit great golf shots. I'm just trying to get it up by the green, and if I get it up and down. And then he shoots a Players Championship scoring record, just slapping it around. If I told you I'm just slapping it around, that's not 20 under par. So, yes, he is the best player on the planet. If he stays healthy, this is going to be incredible. Scottie Scheffler, not at his peak health, dominated.
Yeah, I think that's the really important thing about talking about Scottie's stretch here is that he admitted that he didn't have it all going into Sunday, and he found a way. You talked about that Monday when we came here. You were in a lesson I was filming, and you were talking about how sometimes you just have to play what you have. Yeah. And I think that maybe over the last couple of years, we've lost that in professional golf to a sense because everyone's talking about how perfect a swing has to be, or they're working on this swing change, that swing change. This was due to injury, but still I think the same thing applies is that Scottie played what he had, and he dominated. And on Sunday, for me, again, who missed out on that early Tiger dominance, every time he was moving up the leaderboard, I don't want to say that you saw guys maybe stumble a little bit, because I don't necessarily think Wyndham stumbled. I think Scottie just outplayed him. But, man, it just to me, that has to be somewhat what it felt like. So, yeah, I think that tournament is exactly what golf needed. We talk about all the time, did golf win, did golf lose? Golf won. We have a few weeks off from big events until Augusta. Going into Augusta, Tiger's officially announced on the list. He's going to be there. Scottie's going to have 2 weeks to heal up with the neck. I don't know how long that's going to linger, if it is going to linger. It seemed like Sunday after he was pretty nonchalant about it. So I don't want to do a full-on picks, but what are you thinking heading into Augusta?
Yeah, so before we start talking about Augusta, I think you're absolutely right when you talk about dominance, right? We're talking in the last 26 events, Scottie Scheffler has finished 17 times inside the top 5 and 21 times inside the top 10. Insane. It's another level, right? And you're right. Did players back up because they saw this surge of Scottie? No, but that's definitely what happened in the Tiger era. But yes, Wyndham stumbled, but maybe for different reasons, just didn't have it going on Saturday or Sunday. Scottie Scheffler came from the back and dominated. So when we start looking at Augusta, of course you're looking at picking Scottie. There's many different players that Augusta suits, but right now, the hottest player in golf would be the easiest pick. I think right now I looked coming in, he's like 5-1 odds to win Augusta. That's ridiculous, right? So do I think Scottie has a chance to win Augusta? Of course, I also think Scottie has a chance to do something that we've never seen before, which is now win elevated event, major. It's crazy.
Yeah, and I mean, again, we talked about this before the players with some of the kids here, and they were like, no way, no way. And I mean, again, just the way he was playing. And you talked about all those stats, too. People, like, see that now, and on social media, it's like, man, this guy's so good, it's so good. They were dogging him for the last 7-8 months about his putting. And he was still doing all of that you said. And I think that as loud as the criticism was for his putting, the praise for all of the good that he was able to maintain during that stretch and then come out and win 2 elevated events this year, the praise needs to be louder. Because for him to stick with it and keep being competitive and keep being at the top, even though everyone was chirping about the putter, I mean, it's just unreal what he's done.
Yeah, and I think, obviously, I'm talking about the last 26 events, but if we look at going back all the way to January 1st, 2022, right? 51 starts, 9 wins, 3 missed cuts, 34 top 10s, 22 top 3s, 5 top 10s in major championships, 123 rounds in the 60s, cumulative 540 under par, and a nice little 46.3 mil in the bank. So Scottie Scheffler is at another level.
Yeah, and golf needed it, and I'm really excited this is happening because coming into Augusta, it's going to continue that live PGA thing as it always does at the majors. But now you have, like, probably even on another level, the Scottie John Rahm, because John's going to be defending. Scottie's coming in hot. There's just so many storylines going into it. Obviously, Tiger being there. I'm excited for Augusta this year, and I know that it's great every year, but there's so many guys right now outside of Scottie that are playing good golf that have a chance, and that makes me excited.
Yeah, and I think that's the cool thing about the current state of golf, right? We were begging for a big-time player to win one of these first events of the year, and it didn't happen. And now we have Scottie win Bay Hill, Wyndham come in second, Scottie win the Players, Wyndham come in second. Like, there are players that are trending, and those are big name guys. And I'm willing to say that Wyndham is now a big name guy. And maybe that wasn't the case before he won at Quail or before he won his major championship, but now he's showing that he's a big time guy. And we're looking at multiple players who made big changes to their putting to become relevant. So I kind of employ everybody as a golfer to start to understand it's not just how great you hit the ball, it's how you can start to score and how you can cultivate the ability to get it done even when you're not playing your best. And Scottie Scheffler encapsulates that right now.
Another person I want to shout out because they've been going through some changes and they're playing what they got and it's really working. I wouldn't say they're necessarily being rewarded for it yet, but I think it's coming, is Xander. He didn't have it on Sunday, but for him to be working on, according to the broadcast, as much stuff as it seems like he's working on in his swing, and he's there pretty much week in, week out, shout out to him. And I really hope that something comes his way soon because he's been a guy that's kind of been knocking on the door for a minute. Olympics is coming up this summer. Be nice to have him back out there. I just think that kind of got lost in the shadow because of what Scottie did. It's really exciting to see him playing some good golf, and it seems like he's not even there yet. So it's only going to get better, and I think that's really cool that he's been playing some good golf.
Yeah, and I think it's a big step, right? To look at his career and to see him as someone that, had his father as his coach for such a long period of time, and they had so much success. And obviously, he's done a great job with Derek over the years on his putting. But now to add, Chris Como to the mix and to see Chris and him really starting to get those results is amazing. I think Chris is one of the best minds in coaching right now, and you see what he was able to do with some of the players that he works with, whether that's the resurgence of Jason Day after the back issues, or now, you start to see Xander as this ball striker, not just this guy that has the ability to be a great putter. I would have liked to see Xander get a few more balls to the hole in those big-time moments, but I think that's something that they'll continue to work on. And, yeah, I think Xander is definitely a name that you need to think about when you're thinking about who you're going to toss some cash on for Augusta.
So just real quick to go outside of pro golf and into what you do. You've experienced this in your career, when you have a player come to you from another coach or whatever, and you understand that there's going to be a process of we got to fix some things, but when we get to where I know we can get to, we're going to start seeing a lot of success. How hard is that for you as the coach, knowing like, okay, some of these events might not be too good? What does that put more pressure on you? Do you feel like you have to almost like hold the player's hand through it and be like, hey, like it's going to be tough, like we're going to win? Because I see that with Xander. You see it with Scottie with the putting, right? I feel like a lot of the times now in pro golf, coaches are starting to take the flack, which is where I'm going. So I'm a big Ricky guy. He worked with JT, John Tillery, for a long time. As a fan, when he hits a ball out to the right, and I'm like, God dang it, there it goes. We're missing the cut. I don't necessarily blame Ricky because I know of all this storylines with John Tillery. As a fan, I'm like, oh, daggone it, John Tillery. So as the coach, knowing like, hey, I know we're doing the right things. I know that we're taking the right steps. How hard is that for you?
Yeah, well, I think first off, Tillery's the man and does a great job, and you look at the success that he's had with other players, it's amazing. So that's the responsibility of a coach, is that we're in the results business, and if we're not getting the results, then it's on me, right? If I reach out to my stockbroker and say, hey, how come I'm not getting all these gains? His response isn't, well, that's your fault, not my fault. No, that's why I hired you. So when a coach gets hired, their job is to make the player better, right? A lot of times with players, it's more about getting them back to where they were when they played their best than it is to trying to find some new holy grail or some new thing. A lot of times it's just bringing the player back to what they did well, when they played their best, how they played, how they practiced, how they felt, right? So I think what you'll see with Como and Xander is going to be, yes, the media is going to make it about, oh, look how they've changed P5, or look at now the pivot improve, or look at how he's changing his club face. But the reality is, what we can't see is really what Chris is going to change in Xander, which is his confidence in his ability to hit the shot when he has to hit the shot. And I never said Chris hit the shot, right? It's, as a coach, our job is to give the player the information, and not all the information that that player needs to be comfortable with the change. And yes, there are times where a player's working through a change and they might clearly be working on it. But I think if you look at golf instruction now as a whole, it's pretty rare that you go to a coach and then say, I'm okay, coach, if I miss 3 cuts because I believe in the process. Xander didn't hire Chris to miss cuts. Xander hired Chris because he wants to win major championships. So that excitement is why we love it. That's excitement is why we got into coaching, right? So I would expect that any coach out there that has an opportunity to work with a new player, their mission and their goal is to give that player the information that's going to make them better when the coach isn't there telling them what to do. Yes, a lot of these tour players have coaches travel with them all the time, but when the scorecard goes in the pocket, the coach is outside the ropes. The only person that's inside the ropes is that player and that caddy. And so a lot of times it's about, how do we create a system or a process or a routine that allows that player to access those feels. I don't think that any good coach is telling a player, think this. It's more about feel, and it's never, let me tell you what to feel. It's more, let's create an environment in practice that allows you to get a sensation, and then you either lean into that sensation if it's helping you, or you become aware that, oh, when I feel this, I know I'm off, and here's my intervention for that.
So I like that you said that basically it's not, you're not getting a new coach and expecting to go miss the cut. The broadcast sometimes makes it out to be that way. Like, oh, you got to trust the process. And I think you do to an extent. That's with not just golf. That's any sport. That's anything in life. Like, when you're making a change, you do have to trust the process. Now, you're not making that change to just start sucking. Like, that's not what you're wanting to do. Correct. But I'm glad that you said that. And also, I want to touch on the fact that, like, you talked about player goes out, scorecards in the pocket, coach is behind the ropes. You were behind the ropes at Augusta and the Open. You've been there at the biggest events. Augusta's coming up. What is that feeling like as a coach? I think we hear it a lot from players about what it's like to play at Augusta, what it's like to go down Magnolia Lane. What is it like as a coach? The week leading up to it, but then also like those rounds of like, I'm sure there was a little bit of like nerves of, all right, let's play well. Like, this is what we practice for. It's what we've worked for. Talk a little bit about that.
I mean, I think being a coach or being a player, very similar, right? If we're going to an event and I'm there to support a player and I'm nervous, I'm worried, I'm seeing all this stuff in the peripheral, then that energy is going to be transferred to a player. You have to feel like you belong, and you have to feel like this is a privilege to be there. And there's no greater feeling than standing there and seeing those huge pillars at Magnolia Lane just drop down, and you go from just being another Joe driving down Washington Avenue to going, oh, I'm allowed to drive down this? Yeah, and Augusta's pretty good at like, hey, no phones. The first time I went to Augusta, like, I made sure then I'll always be able to remember Augusta. There's no greater feeling. And I think doesn't matter what coach you're talking to. It could be, a coach that's coaching a player in a junior tournament, or it could be a college coach, or it could be, Chris Como and Xander at the Masters, or Randy Smith and Scottie. Like, you get the juices. And I think when you're there in that moment, if you're nervous and you feel like you don't belong, then you don't.
So the one cool thing I think about you is that you coach kind of all levels, right? And I wasn't here when you went to the majors and when you had that run, but I've seen how you coach every day, and I would imagine it's the exact same. So how do you do that as a coach? When you have somebody come in, they're like, me, for instance. I mean, you've given me plenty of swing advice. How do you keep that same level of, like, caring?
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't coach because it's about coaching at Augusta, or it's about coaching because there's a TV camera, or it's about getting wins. Like, I'm not winning. I'm just trying to do what I do, and I have a passion to help players get better. And the way that I coach here is exactly the way that I coached on the range at a major championship, and it's the same way that I acted if I was at a junior tournament tomorrow. Like, there was bands out and we were doing crazy stuff, and because that's who I am. And we're telling jokes and we're having fun, but I'm also yelling at the kid. We're doing completion tasks and having to move some of the best players in the world out of the way, because how could I look myself in the mirror if I said, Zach, you need to act differently today? What you do every day is who you are. And if you're not authentic and in alignment with who you are as a person, then you're just faking it. So, yeah, at Augusta or at Reunion Resort or coaching, the 4 ladies that I had this weekend in from New York that are, I think the best golfer in the group might be a 15 handicap. I'm giving the same energy to them. I'm as prepared for them. I'm as excited to see their progress as I am to walk down the fairway at Augusta.
Yeah, and I think that's the cool thing about you as a coach, you as a person, but also why I think this podcast is something I really wanted to sign up for, is because I think a lot of people can realize that, yeah, we watch these guys on Golf Channel. We watch these guys on ESPN Plus during feature groups. And for a lot of us, the majority of golfers, we are that 15 handicapper that comes down from New York that you coach. And I think it's awesome to have you talking to people that watch this podcast, hopefully more soon. They get to understand that, like, you're giving the same energy that you would at a major championship here, but also on the podcast. Like, I know behind the scenes how hard you work and the effort you put forth to do this. And the fact that you're willing to give not just stories, but like information on this podcast. And it's something that I think is unique that we have. I think it's cool. So now off of you for a minute. Looking forward in golf, Tiger, Yasser played golf, right, in the Bahamas. How do you feel about Tiger being the, I don't know how to say this, but the guy that I guess is basically going to kind of decide the future of what professional golf looks like?
Yeah, I mean, currently I don't have a PGA Tour card, but if I did and they told me, hey, Jimmy Dunn or Jay Monahan can choose my future, or Tiger Woods can choose my future, pretty sure I'm excited to see Privacy pull up in the Bahamas and him and Yasser tossing a few lines in the water, catching a few fish, and hopefully changing what's going on. Because if we really think about it, Tiger made golf what golf is today. So who better to decide the future of golf than Tiger Woods?
Yeah, and, the podcast is earned, not given. If there's anybody in the game of golf now, from executives that don't play, to the players, to coaches, caddies, if there's anyone who should have a say or has earned the say, it's Tiger Woods. There's nobody better to decide what the future of this game looks like than that guy. And when the news came out that I thought it was going to be like, and maybe that still happened, but like the PGA Tour, the member board was going to talk with Yasser, I thought that's what was happening. And maybe it still did. Maybe it is happening. I don't know. But like all the news that came out was Tiger and him meeting and playing. That made me happy.
I mean, of course, it makes everyone happy, right? Tiger understands what the game needs. I think Tiger also has this ability to have the respect of everyone. Again, because that respect wasn't given to Tiger. That respect was earned, right? And Tiger has so much respect for the history of the game. He has so much respect for what golf needs to look like because of the journey that Tiger Woods took through his professional career, right? So I do hope that Tiger makes sure that with this deal, one of the goals is, and I hate this term, so I'm not trying to say grow the game, okay? But Tiger is going to find ways to make golf cool again for every type of kid in the world, not just for the kid that gets to roll out of the G-Wagon at the country club. And if we can start to create this next generation of golfers that, again, are like what we see today, where when Tiger came out, golf became cool. Golf became athletic. It was about hitting it far. It was about having a physical trainer. I mean, when Tiger came out, we should probably clip it and put some of it, the idiots that are in golf media that's saying like, Tiger, he just can't work out like that. And that's just not the way the game's going. And then we see Martin Borgmeyer hitting balls in this bay, swinging it at what he's swinging it at.
We also had a pretty good golfer in here the last couple of days that took all of that very serious. Patrick Reed was here. So, I mean, that's another thing that, like, it's not a joke. These guys, this working in the gym, working on their health, fitness, all that is not a joke. They definitely see an advantage to it. So, yeah, I'm with you. That narrative of, like, that's insane.
Yeah, I just want golf to be about when you have a choice as a young boy or a young girl and you say, hey, what sport do I want to play? It starts to become, I want to be a pro golfer. I want to be an athlete. I want to be able to impact the world the way that some of these golfers are. And no one's impacted the world more than Tiger Woods.
Yeah, and I watched Full Swing Season 2 with my wife. We've watched most of it. We were watching the Ryder Cup episodes. I texted you about this. She said, I didn't realize this was that big of a deal. And she was like, I like the team golf thing a lot. She's watched Live. She told me she didn't realize that it was like real teams. So I thought that was interesting. Maybe this new golf thing, the team event, can be match play. And maybe at some stage, long time down the road, maybe it'll have that same type of feel or energy where there is this rivalry aspect of it and you really want to beat that other team. That would be cool. And I just thought that was awesome because my wife doesn't play. She likes watching every now and then. She likes watching the Full Swing series. So I thought that was interesting from someone who's not too involved with the game, that, maybe there is something that could be cooking down the road that could be a really cool team aspect that's not the Ryder Cup.
Yeah, I think there's a few variables, right? The Ryder Cup is amazing, just like the World Cup is incredible, just like the Olympics are amazing. There's something about supply and demand. The same reason, I know you're a baseball guy, and I know I knock on baseball all the time, but like, I don't have the attention span to watch 150 games or whatever it is, right? But if you look at what people really tune into, 18, 19, 20 weeks a year, football's a big deal. You look at Champions League soccer, it's a big deal because it's a short period of time. So I think Rory gave us an insight to really what's going to happen, which is there's going to be still a PGA Tour. There's still going to be this elevated events. There's going to be the best in the world competing as individuals. And then for a small season, it might just be team golf. I don't necessarily know if I like that more than team golf all the time in conjunction with individual golf. I don't know, because we've never done it. But if you told me that from January to June was going to be what determined who plays on what team in September to December, then I'm tuning in and paying attention to, hey, who's on Scottie's team? What does Wyndham have to do to get Xander on his team? Or what does Bo Hostler have to do in the next 3 events to make it as one of the last players on Scottie's team? Like, that now becomes exciting, adding a new element to golf, because there are periods of time throughout the season where it just feels like, there's golf on again. To be clear, that is not this time of year, right? The next 2 weeks, it just gets so exciting, and we're all just thinking about pimento cheese sandwiches, and we're just thinking about the amazing chirping of the birds, and Jim Nance just changing my life for 7 days. But yeah, that's what we need golf to be. We need to figure out how golf can become like Augusta a few weeks out of the year. Right now, it's the same venue, the same place. You see Bryson hitting balls in his bay with old school Augusta clips on, studying the golf course because it's the same place. That's what we need. We need 15 events a year that have this same excitement as Augusta. And I'm not a huge fifth major players fan, but this last week in Ponte Vedra 100% made me a huge fan of the players. The PGA Tour won, and they are only making it better with their broadcast, with the way the golf course was, the way the fan experience was. It will never be Augusta, just like Scottie Scheffler will never be Tiger, but well done to the PGA Tour and the players for a great week.
This is the last thing I have for you. So on that note of professional golf changing and them trying to figure out what it's going to look like, what are your thoughts on how we should react as fans? Should we be okay with, like, hey, this year might be weird. They're going to try team events from this time to this time, or they're going to do solo events here and maybe some team stuff. Should we be accepting and say, okay, let's let it play out, see how it works, and then we'll change as it goes? Or, which I think this is probably the more likely thing, are we just going to hear a lot of complaining? What are your thoughts on that? Should we? I think we're going to have to bear with it. Personally, I think there's a lot of guys on Live that are saying things that they would like to change, and I think maybe egos are in the way from some higher-ups that are keeping those things from changing. I'm just curious how you feel about it, because I'm seeing it on social media a lot now, people really getting on stuff. And I think the PGA Tour, credit to them, a lot of the new stuff they're doing to the broadcast is working.
Yeah, I think there's a time for change, right? The college football playoffs needed to change. They probably waited too long to make that change, but you go back 10 years and there wasn't really any structure to the playoffs. Then everyone complained that it's not fair how they structure the playoffs. Now there's a new system in place for the playoffs, and people are going to complain because there are so many people that just don't know how to do anything but complain. As a golf fan, am I excited to see a future that looks like a blend between the PGA Tour and Live? Yes, because I want to see those players play. Yes, I'm intrigued. I'm not saying I'm all in on the team, but I'm intrigued what that looks like. And will I complain about it? I'm only going to complain about it if we draw a line in the sand and say, this is the way we've always done it and we're never going to evolve. So if team golf comes in and people don't support it, that's their fault. But I believe the PGA Tour, Liv, Yasser, Tiger, whatever they chatted about on their little fishing trip, I think golf's going to come out on the other side better. And for the fan that's commenting and complaining, They have no right to say anything because they probably can't even get the ball in the fairway at their home club. And when they go to the club, they probably complain that the golf course doesn't look like Augusta, yet they paid $12.50 to play the course. I really don't give a shit what anyone says. I care what the players want, because if the players are inspired to do something in terms of team golf, this team concept will be better. If Rory all of a sudden now goes from saying what he said years ago about LIV to now saying, hey, I'm excited for something that looks like the Champions League, I'm excited. John Rahm said what he said about LIV. Now on LIV. Now Legion 13 is the real deal. So, yeah, is golf going to be better? For sure.
Yeah, that was it for me. I just thought it's always interesting around these topics with professional golf and how people respond to it. So yeah, I'm just really excited to see what it looks like. I mean, you even came around to team golf a little bit with LIV over the last couple of months.
I mean, I've come around on a lot. Yeah. The reason why I've come around is no disrespect to what it was before, but team golf's cool when John Rahm's playing.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think, I was a big DJ fan, so when DJ went, I started watching from the jump, and I liked watching some of those guys that went. But like you recently with the level of, or I should say the caliber of players that have jumped ship and made the teams better, it just makes it more fun. And if this is what the future is going to look like, all the best players in the world belonging to a certain team for a couple months out of the year, I think, as we always say, golf wins. So.
Yeah, I think there's going to be an exciting time in golf where players are getting relegated, right? Teams are maybe relegated. How sick would that be? It's like Premier League football, right? Where your team is great, but they play so bad, so they have to get relegated, and then they have to play for a year in a different division to come back up. Amazing. Or imagine that happens, and the captain can say, I get to keep my team, but I have to get rid of all these players. And there's going to start to be this interesting dynamic where there's a competition inside of a competition. Right now, there's no question in golf that Scottie Scheffler is the best player. Every individual is hunting down Scottie Scheffler. What would golf look like if there was an entire team hunting down Scottie Scheffler?
Yeah, that's what I think we have to look forward to, and I'm really excited for it. So I think also in the next podcast, that little take-home thing we can do, like the Masters, the sandwiches? I think I might order that.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the barbecue. Pimento cheese is pretty good. The chicken salad is okay.
And you had them all from there. So, I mean, if anyone's going to be able to give a pretty good review of it, I think it would be you. So, but we're going to get the take-home, and then you can compare.
Yeah, I mean, there's a sandwich for everyone is the way I would say it. And when I was there, I definitely had enough sandwiches for everyone.
Oh, my God. I think that's what we ended on, is that.
You want to see how we do it in the pros?
Changing your swing is about repetition without repetition. You don't just hit 500 balls with this thing and change your swing. You also don't just hit 500 balls without a thought.
Welcome to Earned Not Given.